Hello and welcome to the second episode of PTV FC. I'm your host, Louie Pasculli, along with my amazing panel of Ryan Johnston and Jimmy Bliss. How you guys doing today?
Doing great today, Louie. I'm excited to talk about this week's action of the beautiful game.
And me as well. My Arsenal, they didn't fare as well as I wish they would have the past couple of games, but I'm excited to be here with you guys tonight.
Well, speaking of Arsenal, that's part of the first two teams we are going to talk about because they played Jimmy's Manchester United all the way, about a week ago, and it finished as a 0-0 draw. It was a relatively pedestrian game from both teams, pretty uneventful. There weren't too many scoring chances, so we'll get right into it. I'll let you boys have the floor. How do you feel about the 0-0 draw earlier this week? I'll start with Ryan.
Oh man, I personally, I was really happy with the result. Coming into Old Trafford, the second-ranked team in the league right now, Arsenal. We had our serious struggles earlier this year. We fell all the way down to 15th, worked our way back up. We were in 8th. Go into the second place, we get a draw. That's a great result for that team. I was feeling really optimistic coming out of that match. It was pretty even. There were definitely a few chances that Man United had where they got really, really close to scoring, but Lacazette had a free kick that just hit the woodwork and bounced out. That one hurt. That one really hurt. I was really looking forward to that, so I could rub it in Jimmy's face a little bit this week. But no, Manchester did have quite a bit more possession than Arsenal did, but the shots were pretty even, and I think they had the same number of shots on target, and that's, in my eyes, really what matters. Possession can only do so much if you can't shoot the ball. So it was a great draw for Arsenal at the time. They didn't follow it up very well, but I was happy with the draw.
Yeah, so just like Ryan alluded to earlier, it was a 0-0 draw on the score sheet, but it felt like a 0-0 loss for Manchester United. You were the number 2 ranked team in the Premier League coming into the game, and you hosted who is now in 10th place Arsenal. You need to win that game if you want to consider yourself a title contender, which Manchester United was this time last week. Right now, it doesn't look like they are, but still, you needed to win that game. It was a fair result, I thought, given the play of both sides. Neither team, like Ryan said earlier, had huge chances. There were a bunch of half chances. Cavani had a chance to possibly win the game late. Lacazette hit the crossbar, so he was very close. But overall, it was just a very, very boring game to watch. The first half was completely dry. You didn't see many chances at all. Bruno had an opportunity in the second half. Cavani had an opportunity in the second half. Lacazette, like we said, struck the crossbar. But overall, it was just kind of a boring, no one wanted to lose the game type of game. And that's the type of game we've become accustomed to with a lot of Manchester United Big Six opposition games this year. This was their third 0-0 draw against a top 6 opposition this season, which is just not good enough if you're a Manchester United fan, if you're a Manchester United supporter, if you're a Manchester United player, or anyone in their front office. So it was just overall really disappointing on the side of the Red Devils.
Yeah, I'm going to have to echo what Jimmy just said. I think if you're Man United and you're part of that team, then you feel like you left 2 points on the pitch that game. It was a game that they probably should have won. Tying didn't hurt them per se because they came away with 1 point, obviously, but you really want to come away with 3 points against a team like Arsenal, and especially the stretch that Arsenal is going through where the Man United has a chance to take those 3 points away. Now, Man United's next game was much, much different than the Arsenal fixture, right? Man U came out and won by a score of 9-0, which boosted them into second place into the Premier League standings. Watching that game, I was shocked. I understand that there was a red card early on. I believe it was the second minute, right? But 9-0, you got to like that as an Arsenal fan, Jimmy. I know you were watching the TV in awe, just thankful of that Arsenal, of the Man United offense. They really blew the wheels off. So there was another game after that, and it just today, it ended a few minutes before we began recording this, actually, and they tied with Everton 3-3. Cavani did score against Everton, so that's good for Man U. But before then, he only scored 1 goal in that 9-0 rout. So, Jimmy, I'll start with you. How do you feel about Edison Cavani's played recently in front of goal? Has he been producing to the extent that you would like him to?
Yeah, so coming into this season, 33-year-old Edison Cavani was a free agent after his contract was terminated by PSG. And a lot of people didn't think he had a lot left in the tank. He was 33 years old. He was injured a lot of last season, so PSG played a lot of Mario Cardi instead, killing Mbappe up top to replace the void that Cavani was leaving behind. So when he was signed, a lot of Manchester United fans were owning and groaning. They weren't really happy that Edison Cavani came in, but as far as I'm concerned, I think Edison Cavani's been absolutely perfect for Manchester United this season. He hasn't scored a lot of goals this season. He scored he scored 6 goals in the Premier League this season, 7 goals overall, and he's only started 7 games in the Premier League. So 6 goals in 7 starts in the Premier League is a pretty good outing. It's a pretty good percentage. He came on as a sub in the other 9 games, and he did score 2 goals against Southampton earlier on the season. So I guess he did only score 4 goals in 15 games in the Premier League. But he has been absolutely sensational for Manchester United this season. The attack looks so much smoother with him on the pitch rather than Anthony Martial, because he just makes so many good runs. He, as Mason Greenwood said earlier this season, he just doesn't stop moving. He just finds a knack to find space and just harass defenders, creating space for the likes of Bruno Fernandes, for the likes of Mason Greenwood, for Paul Pogba, for Bruno Fernandes, for these sensational players, sensational finishers. Now, he might not get the assists because he only has 2 assists so far this season, but he really does have a huge impact on Manchester United, and I have zero concern going forward with Edison Cavani and a Manchester United shirt.
Yeah, I 100% agree with Jimmy on this one. Anytime a striker scores and it's considered like not up to par, it kind of just shows how good the team is in general, because you were talking about how he only scored 1 goal in that 9-0 rout against Southampton. I mean, they won 9-0. What do you want from the guy? Do you want him to score a hat trick? Like, he can't do everything for the team. And, he scored today. And Jimmy, I 100% agree with him on the work rate aspect. He just never stops moving, really. And he definitely opens up the pitch a lot more for these Marcus Rashfords, for these Bruno Fernandezes, to get some space and take their shots and show off their talent. He's doing what he has to do. He's kind of more of like, if I had to describe him as a basketball player, I'd say Shavar Reynolds, like the guy that does like the dirty work on the team, gets the other guys open and creates some space for them so they can really show off what they can do. And maybe Marcus Rashford is Sandro Mamakashvili or someone like that. He may not be the most prolific goal scorer at this point in his career because he's 33, and as we all know, Father Time is undefeated. But I don't see any issues with what he's doing right now for Man U.
Now, when I think about this question, I look to a team like Liverpool and Firmino, and how when the offense is going, he doesn't have to score to have an impact in this game. And I think Cavani is similar to that. I mean, you just talked about it, Ryan. Bruno Fernandes and Marcus Rashford in that offense look amazing when Cavani is playing well, and he doesn't have to score goals in order for him to play well and to contribute to that offense. And speaking of Liverpool, they have played 2 games since our last episode, and they picked it up against West Ham. I predicted that 4 goals would be scored in a 2-2 draw. It was not the case. Liverpool won by a score of 3-1, and West Ham didn't look too great in that game. They scored a consolation goal late, but it is what it is. It was too little too late. Liverpool looked pretty good. But then I get a little scared, and I get a little concerned with their next game because they played Brighton, who's 15th place in the Prem, and they lost 1-0. So what do you make of this inconsistency from the Reds as of late? I'll start with Ryan.
It's really too bad because Liverpool doesn't have that same magic around them that we've seen for the past couple of seasons, and really it's got to do with their defense. Their 3 best center backs are out. Virgil van Dijk, Joe Gomez, and Matip, they're all out right now. And it's really hard to be consistent when you don't have a consistent back line. They're constantly moving around their defense, trying to find players that will fit in. I know Fabinho has been playing quite a bit of defense this season, and that's just not his natural position. He's not a natural center back. Did I say Fabinho? It's Fabinho, right? Yeah, okay. Yeah, I get confused between – there are a lot of Ineos and Brazilian Ineos in the Premier League, but they've just – it's really hard for them to be consistent. They're putting so much of the load on Sadio Mane and Salah, You know, their offense. They have to score consistently 3 to 4 goals every game to have a chance at winning, and it's disheartening to see because they look so good and they've been so fun to watch in the past few seasons when they've had that whole flow, when they had Virgil van Dijk in, you know, just from offense to defense, everyone was in sync, and right now they're just not because of how much shifting that they have.
Yeah, so as a Manchester United fan, I love this Liverpool inconsistency. They've been slapping us around for a few seasons now. Everyone knows that Liverpool is probably the best club in the world when at full strength. But right now, just as Ryan alluded to, their defensive woes are largely due to the inconsistency that they've had in the defense due to their injuries. Like Ryan said, Virgil van Dijk, Joe Gomez, Joel Matip are all out for the season. So that makes them have to use Fabinho as a center back. He's been playing outrageously good as a center back this season. I think I can be the first to raise my hand and say I didn't think that he was going to slot in and be as good as he is right now. He looks like he's a natural defender as a center back. He came over to Liverpool as a right back, so he did have some experience defending, but then he got moved into the CDM role and he was killing it at CDM, and now we had to get pushed back into center back because they didn't have much more choice. As well as Jordan Henderson, who's obviously Liverpool's captain. He's been playing very well at center back as well, especially his passes, his deep passes across the field to a guy like Sadio Mane or Mohamed Salah. These two players have, just like Ryan said, have been scoring pretty much every goal. But another part of the Liverpool team that's been struggling a lot is their midfield. So because you have to move Fabinho and Jordan Henderson back into center back, that opens up a slot in the midfield. So they've been playing Xherdan Shaqiri there. They've been playing some of these other young youth academy guys in the midfield. They've also brought in Thiago this summer, who has been very good on paper, but the team doesn't look as good with Thiago just because he's more of a finesse kind of player and he likes to keep the ball for a little bit longer. Whereas the typical three-man midfield of Liverpool, which is Gini Wijnaldum, Jordan Henderson, and Fabinho, they aren't as technically gifted as a player of Thiago's caliber. So they just get the ball out quickly. They do a lot of one-touch, two-touch stuff, whereas Thiago will hold the ball for 20 seconds at a time, and he'll create a pass that is a good pass, but in that instance, you could have had 3, 4, 5 passes at that point, which we saw over the past few seasons with the Fabinho, Gini Wijnaldum, and Jordan Henderson midfield. But as of right now, I don't really have a lot of remorse for Liverpool's woes. Jurgen Klopp can complain all he wants about the scheduling and about how this is unfair to him, but he doesn't rotate his side at all. He, over the past 2 years, he's been playing the same 14 players, 13 players every single game. If I just named out their starting 11 from the last few seasons, this is what they play every single game. They always have their Alisson in net, Trent Alexander-Arnold, Virgil van Dijk, and then one of Matip or Joe Gomez at center back, and then Robertson completes the midfield, and then completes the defense, and then the midfield of Wijnaldum, Henderson, and Fabinho, with the front three of Salah, Firmino, and Mane. These 10 players are fantastic. They are some of the best players in the world, but you need to rotate your side, especially against some of these relegation battle teams, especially against your Fulhams, your West Hams, your Sheffield Uniteds. You can't keep playing these same guys every single game. I know it's not FIFA where you can just rotate guys and just kind of get results based on whoever's on the pitch, but you have to rotate your guys. Like Manchester United, a big reason why they have taken a step up this season is because they've been rotating their players. They have a lot of squad depth. I mean, a guy like Donny van de Beek, who would be playing for most teams, he's been on the bench for most of the season and has only made 10 appearances off the bench, I believe 3 starts in the Premier League. So you need to have a big squad to compete in the Premier League. Liverpool doesn't have that. Jurgen Klopp just plays the same 13, 14 players every single game, game in, game out. So I really don't feel bad for Liverpool for these injury woes because Jurgen Klopp really brought it upon himself.
All right, so we've already talked about some interesting games that went on today and went on throughout last week, but there are more tomorrow and more throughout next week. So I know what I'm going to be looking forward to, but let me get your thoughts. What are you guys looking forward to? What games are you looking forward to be watching next week? I'll start with Jimmy.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to next week's Leicester City versus Liverpool game on Saturday. So Leicester currently sit in third place on the table, and Liverpool are in fourth place, shaking up a little bit. Very inconsistent past 2 weeks with Liverpool losing at home to Brighton and to Burnley, which they haven't lost at home in the Premier League since 2017, prior to the loss to Burnley and then last week to Brighton. And Brendan Rodgers will come back to play his former side. He coached Liverpool for a few seasons before he went to Leicester City, where he is right now. And both of these clubs are really good. We know Liverpool, with all their injury woes, are in fourth place right now. A team with a lot of key injuries like them could be a lot further down the table, but it really shows a lot about Mohamed Salah, Sadio Mane, and Jurgen Klopp's managerial ability for them to be on third place at the table. Leicester City, very much like Liverpool, they have shown a lot this season, a lot of guts, a lot of glory. They are third place, and a team of Leicester City's caliber and of their magnitude, they're not a very big club. So for them to be third place in front of sides like Tottenham, Liverpool, Chelsea, Everton, sides like these that are consistently in the top four, top six, it really says a lot about them. So I think this is going to be one of the best games of the week. And I'm going to predict, I'm going to say a 2-1 win to Liverpool for this result.
Yeah, for me, I'm going to go with the other biggest game that weekend, which is Man City versus Tottenham. We've all seen what Man City can do this season. They're on the top of the table with 2 games in hand over second place and 2 points over second place. They're just going absolutely insane. Kevin De Bruyne, in my mind, probably the best midfielder in the world right now. Bruno is probably in the conversation right now. He's had a fantastic season, but Kevin De Bruyne is just so, so good. But on the flip side, Jose Mourinho's Tottenham, they've really struggled recently. We've seen them lose to Brighton, who actually, it's kind of weird that Brighton has lost against some really poor teams and then beaten Liverpool and Tottenham. But that's a story for a different day. They really have fallen off a cliff a little bit. I wrote an article earlier about why Tottenham fans shouldn't be afraid, but right now I'd be very afraid. They have to be desperate going into this game. They literally have to. If they don't, I don't see them making the top 6 really at all. So this is a huge game for Tottenham. That being said, I still don't think they're going to win. I'm not convinced on Tottenham right now. I'm going Man City wins 3-1, and Tottenham falls a little further down the table, maybe to the chagrin of some of the Hotspurs fans out there.
Yeah, and you both talked about the games I wanted to highlight, and I'm going to have to agree with Ryan in the sense that I think Tottenham is going to be hungry, but they just don't have the quality to beat this City side. As you mentioned, all the players. I mean, De Bruyne, you said he might be. I'm going to say he is the best midfielder in the world because I watch him play, and he does things that only Kevin De Bruyne can do. And I think to myself, wow, that is a team that is firing on all cylinders. I mean, they haven't lost I can't even remember when the last time that they lost was. I'm really excited for this game. I think it's going to be a close and competitive game, but in the end, I do think that City is going to come out on top. Now, we were talking about shuffling going on in the top 6 and who's going to make the Champions League and who's going to make the Europa League, excuse me. And I want to hear your guys' prediction on the final top 6 of the standings. I will start with Ryan.
I'll start from the top then. Man City, I think this is a pretty clear choice right now. They're just absolutely running the table with every team that they play. They're just looking so good, just unreal from them. And I don't really see any team catching up to them with how they're playing right now. Number 2, I'm going to go with Manchester United. They're looking really sharp. They dropped a couple of points against Arsenal and Everton, but that 9-0 win against Southampton was obviously quite convincing. So I'm going to go with Manchester United as 2. Number 3, I'm going to go with Leicester City. Brendan Rodgers, he's really just been a phenomenal coach for them this season. And I think that while they might not have the money or the value of squad as some of the other teams in this high ranking, this upper part of the table, their managerial skills really make up for it. So Leicester City number 3 for me. Number 4, I'm going to go with Liverpool. We talked about them a lot earlier because Salah is just ridiculous. He's leading the league in goals, but their starting 3 center backs are out. I think it's going to be really hard for them to win week in, week out, playing 2 midfielders as their center backs. It's not going to work as well as it has in the past. So I'm going with them, number 4. Number 5, I'm going with Chelsea. Although they had slipped a little bit recently, they got a new manager in Thomas Tuchel, and they got the win, a 1-0 win over Tottenham. And, they dominated the possession. They looked really convincing. They had 16 shots. They're in that honeymoon period right now. We saw it with Mikel Arteta in Arsenal. We saw it when Ole Gunnar Solskjaer first took over at Manchester United. I think they're going to win for a while, and they might fall off a little bit as teams start to pick up on what they're doing. But they're going to win a little bit in my eyes and finish 5th. And finally 6th, I'm going to go with Everton. I really trust Carlo Ancelotti's squad. James Rodriguez is great. Dominic Calvert-Lewin just scored a game tire today against Man U. I'm going with Everton.
All right, so I actually have the same teams as Ryan, but in a little bit of a different order. The number 1 team come the end of the Premier League season will be Manchester City. They pretty much have won it right now. They have a 2-point lead with 2 games in hand over Manchester United, and so it's all but over right now. They've had no starting striker for a lot of the season, so they've been forced to be playing Bernardo Silva as a false 9, or we have Raheem Sterling, a few of these other players like Ferran Torres have been playing striker. So now that Aguero is going to be coming back probably before the end of the month, I just think that Man City is going to run away with this. In second place, I have Manchester United, as does Ryan. I think they've been a little bit inconsistent lately, but I think they'll get it together pretty soon. I think Bruno Fernandes, Marcus Rashford, and Pogba will force the Red Devils into a top 2 finish. And so today I showed up to this wearing black because I wanted to say that we just witnessed the funeral of Manchester United's hopes to win the Premier League just after this 3-3 draw. I think that it's too far back for them to actually win this Premier League with 2 games back, with also 2 points behind a team like Manchester City and Pep Guardiola. I just don't see it happening for them. So then in third place, I'm going to go for Liverpool. I think that they'll get it together a little bit better. I just trust Mohamed Salah and Alisson along with Mane and Jurgen Klopp to not finish in the top 3. I think that even though they've had a lot of injury woes, I think that they'll be okay and they'll just will their way into a top 3 finish. In fourth place, I have Leicester. I think that they're a really, really tough out. They don't lose a lot of games, and whenever they do, it's just a 1-goal game. They are seriously in every single game that they play. Jamie Vardy, James Maddison, and Yuri Tielemans, I believe, are going to have a huge impact come the stretch of the season, and I think that they're going to find themselves in 4th place. Chelsea, I'm going for at number 5. They looked really good under Thomas Tuchel thus far, and I think that Timo Werner is going to step up a lot with the appointment of Thomas Tuchel. I think the best is yet to be seen from him, along with Kai Havertz, another German, to go with their German manager of Tuchel himself. I just think that Chelsea under Tuchel's been known to win the games that he should. He may lose a lot of the bigger games like the cup tie finals or some of these Champions League games, but in the Premier League, I think he's going to beat up on a lot of the lower half of the table type of players. So he should be able to get Chelsea into the Europa League in the 5th place finish. Then in 6th place, I have Everton, who started the year off great with Carlo Ancelotti, James Rodriguez, Decore, who they signed in the midfield, as well as Allen. They all played really, really well to begin with. James Rodriguez got injured, then he got COVID, so he wasn't around a lot, and then they kind of slipped down the table. But now James Rodriguez is back. He scored today, and then he assisted as well. So he is going to be key for them to come out of the Premier League season playing European football for next season. And I just think Everton under Ancelotti, under Dominic Calvert-Lewin, Bernard, all these players, they're just going to be okay. They're going to be just good enough to beat out a Tottenham, an Arsenal, an Aston Villa, and a West Ham to get that number 6 spot.
All right, so my list is pretty similar to both of your guys' list. Number one, I have Manchester City. I mean, we talked about it earlier. Kevin De Bruyne is the best midfielder in the world, and when Aguero comes back, they're going to be rolling on all cylinders, and they already are. So just to think that when they're all healthy and playing well, it's going to be a scary sight to see. They're in great form. I think they can continue that form for the rest of the season. I really do think that they will be number one in the Prem come the last match day. And number two, I have Manchester United. They're also playing very well, and we will continue to see this throughout the season because we talked about it with Cavani. When Cavani doesn't score, it's Rashford or Bruno Fernandes on the score sheet. So there's multiple players at Man U that can score, and we're going to see them continue to play like that throughout the rest of the season. Now at number three, I have Liverpool because they have, as we talked about, had a lot of injuries, and it's the inconsistency factor as to why I'm not putting them higher. They'll win a very important game against a top six side, and then they'll turn around and lose to Brighton, and that kind of scares me going forward. So that's why I have them at number three. Now, number four, I have Leicester. I mean, Jimmy said it the best. They're hard out. Leicester City is playing very well right now. They've been a top six side for almost the entirety of the season. I think they're going to stay like that, and they're not going to fall off too much as the season goes on. Now, at number five, you guys aren't going to like this. I have a monkey wrench in West Ham. I'm telling you, they're going to be playing UEFA League football. They have the chemistry going right now. Their striker is playing amazing. Look for West Ham to turn some heads and be a surprise team to be in the Premier League's top six for the rest of the season. Now at number six, I have Chelsea. I might be a little biased here because I really like their coach, Thomas Tuchel. You mentioned the two German players. Pulisic isn't German, he's American, but he came from Borussia Dortmund. And if I'm not mistaken, Tuchel was able to coach him in Pulisic's time there at Dortmund. I think he's going to get those players playing very, very well and at a very high level. He's going to get them winning. We already saw he's got one win as soon as he took over the reins as manager. I think Chelsea's going to look good and find a way to sneak into the top six of the Prem. And that's all the time we have for today. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the show. For our panel, Ryan Johnston and Jimmy Bliss, I'm Louie Pasculli, and I will see you next time. Stay safe.